the importance of early intervention is that we know that young children, their brains are developing so much in those first 3 to 5 years, and it can make such a positive impact that, truly the best thing that I can do is to continue to do that and to, communicate with the people on his team and trusting that I'll make the next right decision when it's time.
Welcome to Tune In, the first 3 years. And today I have a mom on that I see her youngest in the early intervention program, and her name is Stacey. And the reason I picked Stacey as one of my first interviews was I've always been really enamored by her ability to be vulnerable, like pretty much from the beginning. And she's just very human, very real, very genuine. And I love that. I love that about you. And there's no act, there's no falsehood, there's no like pretension or anything. It's just like you ask such great questions and you're like truly, truly engaged with your boys and your family. And that is why I chose you to be on here so early in the process. So welcome.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, that really means a lot to hear that, and I definitely try to project that, and it's wonderful to hear that outside, and definitely care so much about my boys, and am excited to get to talk about them.
Oh, awesome. Okay, so first question is, I want you to tell me a little bit about your family and your boys.
Yes. So I'm Stacey, as you said, and my husband and I, we've been married for 9 years, and my husband is an IT director, and then I'm a stay-at-home mom. My background is in social work, so I worked in community mental health before having my oldest son. And our path to parenthood was a little bit difficult. We went through infertility and had 3 really difficult losses along the way. So I've always just very much felt such gratitude for getting to be a parent and getting to raise my boys. So that kind of leads me into talking about them. So my oldest is 4 years old, and he is a very energetic, sweet, smart little boy. And he was diagnosed with autism level 2 when he was just over 3 years old. And he also does have some vision concerns. So he was diagnosed as being very farsighted, and also has strabismus, which basically is where his eyes cross. And currently, as far as services, so he's seeing an ophthalmologist, and then he also goes to a clinic where he gets ABA, OT, and speech. And then my younger son, who you work with, he is 20 months old.
Who is adorable, by the way. He's got these little like light blue glasses. He's these big blue eyes. He's so cute.
Oh, thank you. Yes, he is. He is absolutely adorable. Thank you. And he is, definitely my sweet, curious, just loving little boy. And he's very adventurous as well, which I love about him. And so he doesn't have a diagnosis at this time, except he is farsighted as well. He doesn't have the strabismus, but he is farsighted and wears the glasses. So he came into early intervention due to some gross motor delays. And then currently we're working on the gross motor as well as communication, as he's made a lot of progress with his gross motor. And so we kind of switched that focus in early intervention to working on the communication, but also working on his gross motor at the same time.
Yeah. And when I first started working with him, I think he was close to 8 months.
Yes.
And he wasn't sitting, and he was not really rolling that much, and he definitely wasn't crawling. And he like picked that up really quickly. And just a fun fact, we were at his house, the service coordinator and I were at their house when he started taking like pretty much his first steps. Yes. And we were doing a meeting because we were adding another person to the plan. And all of a sudden we look over and he like just walked, and we were like, oh my gosh, we all got to see that at the same time. So that was really fun.
Yes, that was absolutely amazing. I was so glad that you guys were there and got to witness that. And
yeah.
It was like he knew that nobody was really watching him, or, that we were not focused on him. And so he decided, I'm going to do it today.
Yeah. This is a lesson like that is across the board, is they do it in their own time. And I think if we can learn that lesson we can not have those expectations on our kids when they're younger. I think it'll serve us well too, because we just always have these ideas of timelines, and it just makes us more and more anxious when they don't achieve those. And yeah. Okay. So, when did you first start noticing some differences with your older child, your older son?
So with my older son, so the first concerns that I started to have were around his vision and his gross motor. So around the 5 month mark, I was really starting to feel concerned because I was noticing that his eyes were crossing, and I was also noticing that he wasn't rolling or really showing a lot of interest in movement. So he was really content to just stay in one spot, especially if he had toys or I or my husband were there with him. He was content to just kind of stay. And so at that point, at his 6 month appointment, I talked with his pediatrician about the concerns, and she gave me some strategies to try at home and just kind of that wait and see. So then 3 months go by until his 9 month appointment, and there really wasn't a lot of progress. His eyes were crossing significantly more than they had been previously, and then he really had not made much progress in terms of rolling or anything like that. So then at that point, my older son was referred to ophthalmology and also to early intervention. And he started wearing glasses, and we started addressing the strabismus at about that 9 month mark. And then my older son ended up not qualifying for early intervention. He scored basically just above the cutoff needed. And I remember he had just started wearing glasses at that point. And so the therapist had thought, well, maybe he'll start to progress now that the vision is under control. So at that point, just kind of worked on some things for a couple of months. And then at the 12 month mark, then my older son was referred to a clinic-based physical therapist. And so started that when he was about 13 months old. And he ended up then starting speech at that same clinic. And at that point, just kind of hoping that maybe it was more of delay and that we would start to see progress as we were addressing these things. And then just to kind of touch on some autism signs, what I really started to see in terms of him maybe being a bit neurodivergent was that, so the first thing around 18 months, he was opening and closing doors and very interested in that, very interested in spinning spinners or really any toy that he could. And so I was kind of hoping, well, maybe this is due to vision. His vision wasn't really developing appropriately at first. Maybe that's all that this is. And then around 2 years old, he started using echolalia, so basically repeating lines that he was hearing, and specifically more of that delayed echolalia. And so he loved listening to music. And so he would repeat lines from songs, he'd repeat lines from books, things like that. And, just was not necessarily following a lot of directions, that type of thing, not making a lot of eye contact. And, so I kind of talked with his therapist about what I was seeing, and there was kind of some mixed things around that, because yes, there were signs, but then he was also really social. Mm-hmm. And he really always enjoyed being with people. And so it was a little bit unclear of what was going on with him. But then it really started to become clear then when my second son was born. So my boys are about 2.5 years apart. And when he was born, we learned, which this is still the primary trigger for my older son, is the sound of crying or any sort of kind of high-pitched noise. And so, then it just really became clear that was kind of a sensory overload for him. And started to see some more kind of stimming type of behaviors. So kind of, moving his hands unusually around his face, turning himself in a circle, and watching a certain spot on the floor, flapping his hands when he was happy, things like that. And so that was what really prompted us then to have him evaluated for a possible autism diagnosis.
Yeah, sounds like it was a little bit hard of a journey for that time, especially like I forgot that he didn't qualify for early intervention. So
Yes.
That must have been hard getting him to the clinic and
yes, it was
everything like that. Sometimes kids just don't do great in the clinic setting,
Yes.
So
Yes. No.
did you have any fears or hesitations like starting early intervention services with your younger son because of that, or just in general?
So I was feeling nervous that my younger son might not qualify as well. So that was certainly a fear. And my biggest fear with that was, honestly, if he doesn't qualify, that it almost felt like a delay in starting services, because if he doesn't qualify, then we have to go back and be referred to a clinic and things like that.
Right.
So that definitely made me a little bit hesitant. And I'm so glad that we moved forward with it, because it's been such a wonderful experience. And, I definitely really liked the therapist that my older son had clinic, but it's just such a different experience having the early intervention services in home. It just feels so much more comfortable. And it seems like you do end up making more progress, because it's very much based on what we're already doing in the home and those daily routines.
Yeah, and
So
and also how much you're contributing to it. So I think that's something that a lot of families really, I did when I first heard a lot about the coaching model. A lot of families have a difficult time wrapping their head around what the coaching model is, because it's so different than the medical model. It's not that we come in and my hands are on him the entire time I'm in there. It's like a lot of talking and a lot of holding space and a lot of what's working, what's not working, what's new, what can we help you with? And then of course there are times that we're demonstrating things, but more of it's like, how can we incorporate these strategies into your daily routines and the toys that he's already playing with, and the struggles that you're having, whether it's transitions, whether it's eating, whether it's getting in and out of the car, like whatever it is. So I love, now that I'm in it for almost 2 years, like I love it. Like I just feel like it's such a eclectic approach.
yes.
And because most of us also have knowledge in the other areas now that we're doing it for longer, like communication. If I'm there alone, I can still touch on the communication or the mealtime. The bedtime is still a little bit elusive with that little guy. He likes
Yes.
he likes to wake up at 4:30 in the morning and start his day. So that's been a little bit of a challenge for the family. But yeah. So, okay. So another question is, how has your experience parenting your older son shaped the way that you view your younger son's development?
Yes, so it definitely has impacted the way that I view my younger son's development, that I feel like I'm just constantly trying to compare my younger son now to where my older son was at that same age. And there's certain things that have been positive with that. So the vision is a great example of that. So with my older son, what really keyed us into him potentially having vision concerns was the eye crossing. And with my younger son, his eyes don't cross, but he is about as farsighted as my older son is. And so we wouldn't have known that had we not been keyed into the fact that he may have vision concerns. So that was definitely a positive. But an area that I would say with that is the most difficult is just that, as say that comparison is really the thief of joy, and it just makes me feel so concerned of, can I catch this early? Is he on the spectrum?
Right.
Could I have him diagnosed younger? Would he make more improvements if I have him diagnosed younger? Things like that. So I'm just kind of hyper aware, and there are a lot of similarities between my two boys, but there's also a lot of differences. And
Right. And those are definitely things that we have talked about, over time is, you've asked that question a few times, and and I don't have an answer for it. I mean, and as you know, I also do evaluations at an autism clinic. So, yeah, that'll be things that we touch on, closer than he gets to 2, and go down that road and see if that's something that you want to do early, and see if it's something that is worthwhile.
yes.
But yeah, so how do you balance that? Like wanting answers and then just trying to be in the joy and enjoy him.
Yeah, so that's definitely a difficult balance, and there's a few things that come to mind for me with that. So the first one, I'm definitely naturally a worrier, and I'm always trying to think about way out in the future, and then I have to stop myself and say, okay, Stacey, let's think about what we can't control the future, none of us can, and I try to think about, let's stay in this present moment and think about, what can't I control and what can I control positively. And, in the case of my younger son, that I can continue to engage in the early intervention services and, making sure that I'm talking with you and with the other person that comes in about what I'm seeing, and really being engaged in the sessions that try to make sure that I'm really in that moment when we're having the session, making sure that I'm observing everything and noticing how you guys are with him and things that I can be doing, and we're working on the things that we talk about in between our sessions, those types of things. No, I have to remind myself that that's how I'm going to make the most positive impact for my son, is by doing these interventions, because that's really the importance of early intervention, is that we know that young children, their brains are developing so much in those first 3 to 5 years, and it can make such a positive impact that truly the best thing that I can do is to continue to do that, and to communicate with the people on his team, and trusting that I'll make the next right decision when it's time.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. And, I also just think about play and the importance of play, that, I certainly don't follow it more closely, but I've always been kind of interested in Montessori practices and things like that. And one of the Montessori quotes that I love is that play is the work of the child. And so think about how much development happens in play, and that sometimes the best thing that I can do really is to just get on the floor and play with both of my kids. And oftentimes I see the most growth in those moments when I'm just playing with them and enjoying them.
Yeah, and sometimes that's a challenge that I will address with parents, is because you have early intervention coming into your house, it's, do I need to be doing this at all times when the kid is playing? And it's like, no, like, let them be a child. So I'll usually say, if I'm noticing a parent is struggling with, every time they're on the floor, I'm trying to get them to do this, I'm trying to get them to do that. And I'm like, no, like, just block off certain times of the day. Like, this is going to be our therapy session. Now, obviously that doesn't always work. The kid might be resistant to it at the time, but otherwise you just get caught up in like trying to correct them all the time. And then they're basically in therapy from the minute they're awake to the minute they go to bed. Right. And they deserve to be a child too. So
yes, exactly. And that kind of reminds me when I think about my older son. So of course, being on the spectrum, as many kiddos on the spectrum are, his play is very different from a typical 4-year-old. And he does have goals around play and having more, functional play and things like that. And so I have to balance that of working on his play in a therapeutic way and letting him play the way that he wants and needs to, especially when he's had a long day and he just needs to decompress and play in the way that he likes, that helps to regulate him. And I have to accept that and know that that's okay, and that that's a good thing, because it helps his brain to calm down and to relax after a long day. So
one of my favorite memories was recently he was home because he is not in school. He's not in ABA on Fridays.
Yeah.
And I was trying to get her younger son to like say something and do something. And like, I forgot the older son was there. And all of a sudden you hear him like chirping in and imitating what I wanted the younger son to do. I was like, oh, he's paying attention. It was really cute.
Yes, he is always paying attention. I think he has excellent hearing and auditory things. Yeah. He will definitely repeat things. Yes.
Yeah, and then there was something that I cut you off when you were talking about your different points. I think you had another point about like children and accepting them as they are.
Yes. So that kind of leads me into there's having that acceptance for my children and where they're at, and definitely in experiences and working in mental health as well, just knowing that importance for every child, regardless of having a disability or a developmental delay, that they need to feel that acceptance and that love at home. And so I really keep that in the forefront of my mind, that I want both of my boys to know that I'm always here for them, and that I think it's so important to be both their cheerleader and their advocate, and remembering all of those positive, wonderful things about them, and championing that they know that I accept them fully, and that that I will be there to support them, in their challenges, and using those strengths as a way to overcome the challenges as
Yeah.
well. And
Yeah, and I
so,
always believe that like children are going to be as healthy or as regulated as we are. So
yes,
if we are not well, if we are stressed, if we are anxious all the time, they feel that even in the womb, and
yes,
so it's something that it puts a lot of pressure on us because we're like, oh my gosh, because they can even feel it even when we're pretending not to be. But it is such an importance to like just let go and let them be who they're going to be. And it's hard.
mhm,
It is hard though with comparison and starting going to birthday parties and like seeing where one kid is at versus another. That's something that I touch on very often with families. And the first time that happens, that can be very bewildering to a parent, not even knowing how delayed their child is, because they're kind of living in like just living at home. They're not in preschool, they're not really making any friends yet, and then once they start going to birthday parties and stuff, then they recognize, oh, maybe they are behind. And then just having that acceptance can be a little bit challenging sometimes.
yes, yes, absolutely. That is hard, and I definitely have those difficult moments where maybe I see other children that I know are around the same age, and are above where boys are, and I just have to kind of take that breath and take a step back, and think about that every child's journey is different, and the best thing that I can do is just support where we're at, and also believe in what can be, and the possibilities of the future, and doing things to positively impact that now.
Yeah. Well, your boys are very blessed to have you. And I'm so grateful that our paths crossed in this early intervention journey. And thank you for your time. And thank you for your humility and vulnerability and all of the things that make you you. And I just am so grateful that I've gotten to work with your family.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure working with you as well. And thank you so much for having me today.
You're so welcome.